everyone can agree that bad movies are fun. Whether we watch them to laugh or to cringe, there's something so enjoyable in watching an on-screen train wreck. And every decade, there are some movies that are so bad, so laughably atrocious, that they live on in the cultural zeitgeist long after their artistic achievements merit. Plan 9 from Outer Space in the 60s, Caddyshack 2 in the 80s, Waterworld in the 90s. We all remember these movies precisely because they were so awful that they were rendered unforgettable. And the 1970s had one of the best crops of hilariously bad movies of all. I'm Nostalgic Nick from Do You Remember, and today we're counting down 10 of the worst movies of the 70s. If you enjoyed this rundown of the best of the worst, please give it a thumbs up, and remember to subscribe so you won't miss our next throwback video that we premiere. The Swarm. When the spectacle and destruction of disaster movies fail to overawe an audience, often all you're left with is shoddy character development and a silly plot.
Breeding. Increasing.
In other words, a recipe for hilarity. And this is certainly the case when it comes to 1978's The Swarm, containing the unforgettable line, "Bees, bees, millions of bees." And scene. Thank you.
Oh my God, bees, millions of bees. Bees, millions of bees.
The Swarm focused on Michael Caine's efforts to stop a massive, deadly honeybee invasion of Texas. Famed disaster director Irwin Allen employed an estimated 20 million bees during filming. Critic Gene Siskel wrote that after seeing Star Wars the previous year, The Swarm was, quote, surprisingly flaccid in its thrills. It seemed that people agreed, as this disaster of a movie only made back a third of its $21 million budget. And as the Sunday Times put it, was certainly, quote, one of the worst movies of the ever.
Good. Good.
SEXTETTE. They say you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And in the 1978 flop SEXTETTE, Mae West was certainly verging upon villain territory. West was one of the biggest film stars and sex symbols of early Hollywood, and SEXTETTE attempted to capitalize on that. The film's plot largely revolved around the escapades of a group of young, attractive men all desperate to sleep with West's character. Unfortunately, by 1978, Mae West was 84 years old, starring in her final film ever, and had to have all of her lines read through an earpiece under her wig.
Manners, I once had the pleasure of working with you on one of your films.
Oh, the pleasure was a pleasure.
Good, you too.
Audiences and critics alike found this to be a tad unrealistic, with the critic Rex Reed commenting that the film was a, quote, total unbearable bomb, more like a training film for retired French whores. Rex's words, not mine. Despite having an all-star cast, including Tony Curtis, Timothy Dalton, George Hamilton, and Ringo Starr, it only grossed $50,000 at the box office, which works out to be an abysmal 1% of its budget.
Coming.
The Exorcist 2: The Heretic. Take one of the most beloved and successful horror movies of all time, bring back your principal actors for the sequel, and presto, a recipe for magic. Except The Exorcist 2: The Heretic was about as far from magic, and for that matter, horror, as you can get. While Linda Blair and Max von Sydow reprised their iconic roles from The Exorcist, neither the original writers nor director were retained.
Kill her. We command you.
With the result being an incomprehensible plot and a jumbled mess of a movie. William Friedkin, the director of the original Exorcist, stated it was, quote, as bad as seeing a traffic accident, a freaking disgrace.
Nobody expected it.
Lost Horizon. Movie musicals are a very divisive genre. Some love them, some love to hate them. This is not true of 1973's Lost Horizon, however. Everyone simply hated it.
That is the coward's way out.
Lost Horizon focused on a group of plane crash survivors who stumble upon the mythic realm of Shangri-La.
Hello, I'm Ross Hunter, and I want to welcome you to Shangri-La.
High in the Himalayan mountains, Shangri-La in this case is a paradise where the weather is always perfect and you live forever. Sounds like a feel-good musical to me, right? Wrong. The movie was an update of an earlier 1930s film, and the unfortunate racial aspects of the original are kept intact. The New Yorker noted that Paradise was populated solely by middle-aged white people except the servants, who were all of Eastern Asian origin.
It would not be wrong to start then.
On top of this cringeworthiness, the musical numbers and dance scenes were just bad. almost ending the career of songwriter Burt Bacharach. Gene Siskel wrote, quote, "Nothing works. Not the lyrics, not the dancing, not the script. It's definitely gotta be one of the worst of the decade." MYRA Breckinridge.
The book that couldn't be written is now the motion picture that couldn't be made.
Start with a critically acclaimed late 60s counterculture novel as your source material. Cast two of the decade's most beautiful bombshells, Raquel Welch and a young Farrah Fawcett in her first ever film role. Be sure to check out our 1970s bombshell video for more about those two lovely ladies. Bring Mae West out of retirement for her first role in 27 years. What could possibly go wrong? In short, everything.
Oh, Letitia, they don't call you the queen of the casting couch for nothing.
1970s MYRA Breckinridge was about a man who undergoes a sex change operation in order to scam his uncle out of $500,000.
You realize once you cut it off, it won't grow back.
In fact, Time magazine said MYRA Breckinridge is an insult to intelligence, an abomination to the age. Some harsh words for undoubtedly one of the decade's worst. The Concorde, Airport 79. Sometimes an action movie is so bad, so excruciatingly earnest, that it ends up becoming accidentally funny. And this is very true for this next movie on our list. The Concorde, Airport 79. Fourth in the celebrated 1970s airport franchise, 1979's The Concorde failed to live up to the predecessor's action-packed heights. The movie takes place on a supersonic jet that an evil arms dealer is attempting to destroy with corrupt mechanics, fighter jets, and surface-to-air missiles. The action was completely over the top, with the Concorde eventually landing safely with more holes in the plane than actual plane left. Box Office wrote that the film was so silly that it's actually entertaining, and Variety labeled it unintentional comedy.
What a pathetic joke.
The movie failed to make back its budget and effectively killed the airport franchise. Despite accidentally generating laughs, the Concorde ... Airport 79 completely missed its mark and was undoubtedly terrible. Caligula. 1979's Caligula attempted to update the genre of grandiose historical films by pumping a ton of sex and violence into a period political piece. The movie focused on the Roman Emperor Caligula's incest and murder-driven rise to power, and featured an A-list cast, including Malcolm McDowell, Peter O'Toole, and Helen Mirren. And they might have gotten away with it if it wasn't for those meddling kids. Those kids in this instant being the producer of the film, Penthouse Magazine. Because after production on Caligula wrapped, Penthouse edited the movie significantly, changing its tone and style, and burying a message of political satire under numerous scenes of unedited pornography. This was done without the knowledge of the film's writer or director, who later disavowed the finished product, and led to outrage in bands and countries across the world. Roger Ebert wrote that it was, quote, "sickening, utterly worthless, shameful trash." While certainly one of the worst movies of the 70s, for those willing to look past the unsimulated sex and violence, Caligula has gained a cult following, with star Helen Mirren stating that it's, quote, "an irresistible mix of art and genitals." Thanks, Helen. Beyond the Poseidon Adventure. 1972's Poseidon Adventure was everything a blockbuster disaster movie was supposed to be. Exciting, stimulating, and visually stunning. It was a roller coaster ride about people desperately trying to escape a sinking luxury ocean liner. However, the same cannot be said about its sequel, 1979's Beyond the Poseidon Adventure. This film is the second movie on our list to pair director Irwin Allen with actor Michael Caine.
How the hell do you even find someone like that?
And just like The Swarm, the biggest disaster here is this terrible movie sequel. And the word sequel is even stretching things here, as this movie had almost the exact same plot as the original. Variety wrote it was, quote, "a virtual remake with none of the suspense and excitement." And Gene Siskel added that it was like watching the original, except, quote, "with dialogue that could be written by a first grader." In fact, the movie was universally panned and has an astounding 0% aggregate on Rotten Tomatoes. Ouch.
We're all trapped here anyway.
At long last, love. It goes without saying that two of the top requirements for being in a musical are an ability to sing and dance. While this fact might seem obvious, it clearly wasn't to the producers of 1975's At Long Last Love.
Here I am above the town.
Being in a 1930s-style musical full of glitz and glamour, with a fantastic score of Cole Porter songs, unfortunately had Burt Reynolds and Sybil Shepherd cast in the leading roles. While both talented actors, neither Reynolds nor Shepherd had any background in musical theater, and this inexperience definitely showed. Los Angeles magazines wrote that, quote, "Burt Reynolds dances like a drunk trying to kill cockroaches." And the Chicago Tribune added that, quote, "the musical numbers are a mess. Nobody knows how to sing, nobody knows how to dance. This inability by the lead actors to sing and dance understandably ruined the movie, and audiences stayed away, with the film not even making back half of its budget at the box office. Justifiable for a movie Esquire described it as, quote, the worst movie musical of the decade.
I'm feeling
The Bad News Bears go to Japan. About a down-on-his-luck crook who thinks managing an unruly kid's baseball team will help him get out of trouble. If you think this sounds suspiciously similar to the original Bad News Bears, you'd be correct. Except now they're in Japan. You see, this third film in the Bears franchise cast Tony Curtis in the coach role, but other than that, the formula didn't deviate much from the original two movies.
Zilch. Zilcho.
However, once you tell the same jokes for the third time, things start to feel a bit stale. The Washington Post wrote that, quote, every aspect of the premise that might supply comedy or melodrama is neglected in favor of lazy self-imitation. One of the film's own actors even described it as, quote, the worst movie ever made, and critics everywhere agreed. The film has a measly 6% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I wish you guys would get together and play some baseball, okay?
Woof. From 1 to 10, every movie on this list certainly was a stinker. Whether it was the plot, acting, direction, or a combination of all three, these movies just didn't work, which is why we remember them to this day. But what movies did we miss? Tell us your favorite terrible 1970s movie below in the comments. And please be sure to like this video. And for more nostalgia treats, subscribe to our channel. As always, from all of us here at Do You Remember, thanks for watching.